Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're glad to have you here. It's Sunday morning, April 28th, 2018. We got some sunny conditions out today. It's about, looks like the high today is going to be the high 50s, maybe low 60s. Pretty much all the snow has melted, so there's basically no excuse not to begin outdoor gardening and landscaping and all that good fun stuff. Yeah, I mean, So the second Saturday of every month at the local, they call it a compost facility. For us, we have to use Wright County, but you might have one in your city or township or whatever. So you go there, you drop off a bunch of garbage, sticks, dirt, everything, and you can go there to, if you're eligible, you can go there to pick up compost too. So I got to drive 18 miles over to the Wright County compost facility to pick up the compost there. But it's free of charge, and if time is available, they'll load it for you. So most of the times I just go there with a shovel and shovel it all in, and instead of trying to ask somebody to do work that I can easily do and capable of doing as well, just because it seems like the right thing to do. Plus, it's good exercise too. Then you just got to make sure you eat additional calories to make up for the muscle breakdown and energy expenditures as well. So I think back when I first started weightlifting and things of that nature, when I would get into springtime and start doing outdoor work, I find out that the number of weights or the amount of weight that I could lift was basically tanking and going down significantly. I wasn't hitting the right amount of reps and everything too, but it was mostly because I was eating the same amount of calories as wintertime while I was expending a lot more calories during the springtime. So that's why it's important to get on a consistent progressive adaptation weight schedule so that you can accurately gauge how many calories you should be eating. And then on top of that too, you got to be eating healthy food that doesn't cause you vomiting or sickness and things of that nature. So I've gone through some ruts here and there where, there was that one time where my RO system, I didn't change the filter for about 15 months, so they got some really bad bacteria in there, so I was basically just felt sick for a couple of weeks until I finally figured out that I could not trace it back to any food I was eating because I wrote down everything I was eating. It was consistent with the last couple of months or maybe even years. So eventually you just had to identify it as, maybe it's a source of water or something. So I had to get bottled water for a couple of weeks and months and fix the RO system or change the filters, run some bleach through it, run it through a couple cycles. There's a reservoir tank, so fill it up, empty it, fill it up, empty it, and then hopefully you get most of the bleach out. But there's still some probably remnants, residue in there. So, that being said, it's springtime. You're gonna use a lot more energy. You're gonna be outside. You're gonna be hit with the sun and UV rays and all that goofy stuff. So. It's a good idea to slowly adapt to it, but one of the advantages we have is during the springtime when it's only 50, 60 degrees, the sun isn't as strong as it is, so, you'd probably be fine being outside for most of the day. Because, basically you wouldn't want to just go outside in the middle of summer and then just jump into 90-degree sun and then lay in it all day, because you're probably going to get burned, your skin will flare up like that guy on The Outer Limits, and then you'll just have rashes and itch all day, and it'll probably be very unhealthy for you. Now, your skin organ, the skin is the biggest organ in the human body, but it has about 7 layers on it, so you can knock out a few layers, and that's what tattoos are. They get into the 3rd, 4th, or deep layer, whatever, and they get down there to the point where when the body regenerates the cells, it just assumes that it has to put the same coloring cells back in, so. Yeah, they do fade over time and everything too, but for the most part, when the body does replace the cells of the tattoos adulterated, then they replace them with more adulterated cells. So that's why they can maintain the design for a long period of time rather than just disappearing. Like if you draw a marker on your skin or whatever on the surface, it'll disappear after a while. But yeah, as far as sun tanning and getting burned and all that stuff too. The past week or so, I was probably outside for maybe 20 hours or so, and there's a little bit of rashing going on in the back of the hands here, but It's not a big deal. Yeah, it sometimes itches a little bit and it gets kind of flares up and it looks kind of weird, but obviously it's not contagious and it's a small price to pay for being outside. And yeah, generally it's a good idea to, maybe not generally, but I mean, if you do feel like some sunburn is hitting you hard and hitting you fast and relentlessly, then it probably is a good idea to find some shade and just to, maybe enjoy that for a little bit or do some work in the shade. Summertime, it's pretty critical to find shade too because, when 90, 100 degrees outside and you're working out in the sun, unless you're basically hooked up to an IV or you're drinking gallons of water by the minute, you're probably not going to be able to work very hard for very long. That's why it's good to have the shade. And the nice thing about the sun is it doesn't stay in the same direction relative to the earth at all times of the day. So different parts of your yard or your land or your garden are shaded at different times. So then you can work in different parts too. So it is nice to set goals around that idea. Then you can be healthier and you don't have to worry about passing out or dehydrating or any horrible effects like that too. So, and then it's good to get outside and sweat a little bit. It's one way to get rid of toxins, along with urinating, vomiting, and all that stuff too. Perspiring is definitely a great way though, because you'll notice that when people sweat, they smell. It's because you're getting rid of bad poisonous things that your body doesn't want or need or doesn't even know how to utilize them. So, all right, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the topic I wanted to discuss today is basically a comparative analysis of trailer homes to stick-built homes. Now, a stick-built home, you dig a big deep hole, you lay a foundation, first you lay this base around, and then you lay concrete between that, and then you set concrete blocks on top of that, and then once you get the concrete blocks up to ground level, then you set a frame on there, wood frame or whatever. And then, you fill it in with the windows and the electrical and insulation, heating, ducting, all that good fun stuff, roof shingles. In a trailer home, you got these two metal I-beams that run across the whole length of it. So they're about 60 feet, maybe 80 feet long. And then you set a frame on top of that, basically. And then, the interiors are very similar. There's a few moderate differences. Trailer homes have lower ceilings because they have to, they're trailer homes, you haul them across country, they have to go underneath big tunnel, or they have to go underneath bridges. So if you ever watch a semi-trailer and you watch it approach a bridge, there's always just a couple inches of clearance, and that's because all semi-trailers, like I'm talking about real trailers that haul stuff, not trailer home. Trailer homes, yeah, they're made to be of a certain clearance too. But yeah, the regular trailer semis, the tractor trailers, they'll go right underneath the bridge with a couple inches of clearance. They're all made to that specification so that you can store as much junk and haul as much junk as possible inside of it while not hitting bridges everywhere on the interstate freeways or regular highways and stuff. Sometimes you'll see those bridges where they say 8 foot 6 inch bridge, a low bridge, or if you go to a parking ramp, it'll say 7 foot clearance or whatever. So you don't want to be driving a semi around in there. And yeah, there are some funny videos out there too where they got these low clearance bridges and then people got U-Haul trailers and they're smashing into them and shattering their trailers and they're pretty funny videos. You could look them up, trailer accidents or low bridge overhead accidents. Just yeah, they got some pretty funny stuff on there. But yeah, for trailer homes, yeah, they're see a normal house has about an 8 foot floor to ceiling because when you buy the drywall you get the 8 feet. But if you got a trailer home, then you got to cut off about 6 or 7 inches, or I don't remember what the exact specification is. So yeah, they're about 6 inches shorter than a regular home. And normally it's not a big deal. I mean, you think, well, there's less surface area to heat and cool and everything too. And yeah, to an extent that may be true. But there are a lot of different pros and cons to trailer homes to stick homes. For example, one of the pros to a trailer home is that people respect you more if you live in a trailer home and you have a higher social status. Because if you tell someone that you live in a trailer, they automatically are going to think you're a pretty cool person. But if you tell someone that you live in, one of those $250,000 stick-built houses that looks like every other house in the neighborhood, they're just going to think, oh, well, he's just some normal person that probably works hard and is upstanding, morally sound member of society that just wants to raise a family and everything too. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's just not a lot of prestige that comes with that. I mean, you don't see TV shows about people that live in suburbs and have, I suppose Modern Family is kind of that, but I mean, the idea is, you don't see TV shows based around the idea of living in the suburb. I mean, there's a lot of TV shows and entertainment that are based around, living in trailers, because generally people that live in trailers are more eclectic. They're usually on the funnier side. They experience life in different and unique ways. Usually they're not the kind that just fall into the 9 to 5 routine and then are just very boring and mundane people to be around. I mean, so some of my most fondest memories of growing up were hanging out in the trailer park and hitting like these jumps and everything. They had this dirt pile. So I don't know what the dirt pile was for, but there's just a dirt pile in the corner. So we'd go bike up there a couple miles to get to the trailer park, and then we could hit these jumps, and it was just really fun too. Then there's probably some other stuff going on out there too, but for the most part, just hitting the jumps with the bikes was pretty fun. Now, that's not to say there wasn't other cool things to do around town, but it was just one of many facets of entertainment. But so one of the other things about trailers is the initial upfront cost is a lot cheaper. Well, maybe not a lot cheaper, but definitely if you buy a used trailer on land, I'm not talking about living in a trailer park. Just if you buy a used trailer, like for example out here, it's an acre lot or 1.1 acres, whatever. It has double wide trailer, so it only costs $35,000 to buy the place, and then you had to fix some junk up here and there. But if you were to buy a normal house on an acre lot, well, the one actually across the street was $170,000, and it's a little small. I mean, the base square footage is a little smaller, but it has a basement too, so it's probably got 50% more room than this place here. So the upfront cost. One of the advantages for me is that I could buy this place with cash, no mortgage, no loan, none of those goofy closing costs or none of those hoops to jump through, and I'm not saddled to any debt. But so the long-term value though, because the people across the street, their house might be worth $300,000 now, whereas mine is probably only worth $160,000. So in reality, that would mean I got a net gain of $140,000. And they had a net gain of, well, probably $140,000, but I mean, in reality, a regular stick-built house is going to increase in value, and a trailer home usually decreases in value. Because I mean, this place eventually it'll probably have to get bulldozed and made into a regular house or something. But one of the issues we have out here is that the water table is pretty high. So if you were to you'd have to put in a bunch of rock and gravel and all that junk if you wanted to have a house with a basement here, because the house just down the house right next door, the house is about 10-15 feet higher up than my trailer here, so they probably had to move in, dump in a bunch of rocks and dirt and soil and all that just to have a basement on the house. So that's one of the disadvantages of this neighborhood, because this neighborhood is basically really extremely dumpy single wide trailers, double wide trailers, 150, duplex, or not duplexes, but just regular houses, bi-level houses is what I was trying to say. And there are some decent ones, $500,000 houses, but a few blocks over in the direction, and all the, see, this is only about 30 minutes from downtown Minneapolis, so a lot of the people that work hard and play hard and everything, they want to raise a family in a safe environment. They're buying up all these houses here that are, $500,000 or $400,000, whatever the case may be. So those are the pretty nice houses. They got city water and sewer. Out here we got well water and septic and all that goofy stuff. So there is a variation out here of houses, trailers, and everything too. So I mean, here, if you were to do a direct one-on-one analogy of trailers to houses, this neighborhood would be an excellent example. Because I got 1.1 acres with a trailer. Neighbors across the street got 1.1 acres with the bi-level. So the initial upfront cost of his place or her place, whatever, their place, $160,000. So they probably had to get a loan. So I mean, in the long term, they might be paying an extra $50,000 with interest, loans, closing costs, and everything. Whereas I didn't have to pay a damn thing. I just had $35,000 just cash. Here you go. Have fun. Enjoy it. Enjoy the rest of your life. And then I could just move in, and that's about it, really. One of the other pros of a trailer house is cheap property taxes, because I pay about $900 a year, whereas the people across you can look this stuff up on any county website, just property tax search or whatever, and you can see that I'd only had to pay $900 a year, and most of these other houses out here are probably paying $3,000 a year. So right out the bat, you're saving a lot of money, because a trailer home is basically recognized as abandoned land, more or less, to the county and the taxes. And one of the downsides that has is that the city looks down on trailers, because the tax revenue isn't as good, or even the state or federal or whatever. So they began an ordinance. I don't know exactly when it happened, but if you were to buy a piece of land out here, you cannot move trailers back out here like you could 30 years ago. Now, yeah, you could say it's imperialistic and Nazism and taking people's freedoms away and everything too. But that's just how it is. And yeah, it probably is, completely disregarding what a lot of people got killed for, the freedom, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But I mean, ultimately, it basically means that the city doesn't like you if you don't pay a lot of money. And that's kind of, unfortunately, how your value is sort of set on your financial contributions to many things. I mean, even a lot of times your friends, they don't really want to hang out with you if you don't have any money and you can't even afford to drive anywhere. So, you got to get the foundation laid and everything too, and just be a decent member. If you're contributing to society in any sort of way, your finances will definitely, unless you're completely horrible at spending and buy all the newest clothes and cell phones and everything too. But yeah, a reasonably economic-minded person that doesn't waste money and contributes to society is going to have their finances in order. Now, one of the other pros of a trailer home is you don't have to worry about your basement flooding. So if there's torrential downpours, or if your septic backs up, you don't have to worry about getting water in your basement because you don't have a basement. So that's definitely one underrated facet of living in a trailer home. Now, granted, if you got to do work underneath the trailer home and it rains a lot, yeah, you got to roll around in water, and that's kind of a hassle. But we'll get into that a little bit when we speak to the cons of trailer homes to regular houses too. As far as pros go, that probably about covers most of them. It's social. You have a higher social status if you live in a trailer. It's cheaper property taxes, cheaper initial costs. You don't have basement flooding. People want to come over and hang out more often because they know that living in a trailer is pretty fun and cool and everything. And people probably think that you don't have a lot of money, so they're not going to ask you to buy stuff. Now, the long-term investment of a trailer home, probably not a good idea. If you're just going to buy a house as an investment, you don't plan to live there or anything, it's probably not a good idea to buy a trailer home because the value will likely depreciate. The only reason why I bought this house for $35,000 is probably worth about $160,000 because I did a lot of remodeling and interior work and all that junk, and it was sold as some weird mortgage foreclosure, and I even had to do stuff like get some 20-ton bottle jacks underneath it and level off the place. That's one disadvantage of a trailer home. So yeah, when you put work and effort into it, because this house, the trailer now as it stands, it'd probably be good for another 50 years, and it was backed in here probably in the mid-80s. So yeah, it's been here for a good 30 years, and yeah, it's probably got a good 50 years left in it. So if I ever needed to trash this or get rid of this place or move on to something else, then yeah, you could just sell it, and that's that. So we're coming up to a break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get more into the dark side of a trailer home compared to regular houses in a little bit here. But before we do that, we're going to have a show in the near future called Good Times, Balls Deep. I talked to the host the other day. We were mostly talking about finances, about the sponsors he found and how much they're going to finance. And I guess basically all he has to do is show up at their facilities 5-6 days a week for 8 hours, and then they'll provide Good Times Balls Deep with the necessary sponsorship funding. So yeah, that's definitely a big hit. You know, there'll be a home run there. They don't even require, they don't even want to advertise or have commercials on the show. So the show will just be run commercial free and everything, which will be obviously a benefit to you, the ladies and gentlemen listening at home. And you know, it's just gonna be a great show. It'll make St. Cloud great again. You know, cover mundane topics, but make them exciting so that it brings awareness to potential atrocities that could happen in our society today. So it's definitely something to be excited and exhilarated about too. And with this warm weather, it just makes everything a lot easier. Because, you know, with winter time, you got a lot of other things you got to deal with. But when springtime comes and you can put away your space heaters and shut off your furnace, then your bills are a lot cheaper. Then everything else kind of falls into place then. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Text Messages. We'll be back in 4 minutes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Text. We're glad to have you here on April 28, 2018. We're on episode 27 now. Really no significance to that number. It just happens to be the episode we're doing. Yeah, we're just steaming ahead here. As far as static or dynamic topics go, I'll probably continue doing static topics and maybe point out some little current event, news articles, health issues, and all that good fun stuff to at least try to somewhat educate you, the ladies and gentlemen at home, and hopefully will allow you to make your lives great again and make Elk River great again too. We got sunny conditions. Probably a good day to go biking around or just walking around. Maybe if you got one of those pet raccoons or a pet possum, just walk around with him and put a leash on or whatever the case may be. Usually it's pretty difficult to walk animals without a leash, but occasionally they will oblige, but generally when you can't communicate with things through English or other traditional linguistic means, then it's difficult to narrate to them your intentions and what's going to happen if they follow you. So it is important to keep that in mind too. Apparently chickens can recognize about 120 different sounds, and yeah, I mean if you're around them for a little bit, they'll make sounds under different circumstances. So you can kind of understand what sound means what. Like they'll make a certain sound, then they'll all run towards the one chicken that made the sound. So that chicken probably found some delicious food and wanted to share with the other hens. Or if there's a plane or a hawk that flies above and the chickens make a noise, then you know that's probably a noise of aerial danger. So there is that interesting side note too, ladies and gentlemen. But what we were talking about, comparing trailer homes to regular homes, the pros to a trailer home, it's socially more prestigious to have one. They look cooler. People respect you more. The property taxes are cheaper. The upfront costs are cheaper. People want to come over more often. And you don't have basement floods. However, those benefits in and of itself in a warm climate may be enough to weigh the scales in favor of a trailer home. But in Minnesota here, when it gets to 20 below, you tend to have a lot of problems with heating. So that's probably where I'll have to drop the hammer here and say and recommend overall that all things considered, in Minnesota, a stick-built home is probably better than a trailer home, both long and short term. Now, it pains me to say that because, trailers are awesome and cool, and it's just more fun to say trailer than house. So, I mean, even, I got into the habit of, even when I would reside in a regular house or an apartment, it was just, I always just had to call it a trailer because it was more fun to say. Like my parents, they lived in a normal house and all that, a stick-built house and everything too, but so I had a lot of experience living in regular houses, and I mean this trailer out here, lived in it for about 4 years now, so I got a pretty good bastion of knowledge as far as stick-built houses and trailer homes too. And there's probably there's a year where I lived in an apartment, and another 6 months too. So yeah, I've lived in everything you could think of: a tent, a sewer, under a bridge, in a van, trailer, house, apartment, you name it. I've probably lived in it. And in Minnesota, you do have a little bit. You have a bit of challenge as far as winter time, because you can't just hang out in a van all winter and expect to live. Well, the thing would have to be running all the time, and that would get pretty expensive as far as gas and fuel bills and everything too. So, all right, so now we're going to get into some of the cons of a trailer home as opposed to a stick-built home. Now, as far as heating goes, one of the issues that everybody has is sometimes the pipes will freeze. And I'm talking about the pipes, the pressurized pipes, the copper pipes, the PEX pipes, the ones that run to your kitchen, to your bathroom, and that fill up the toilets and everything too. Sometimes when it gets really super cold, and those might freeze. Now, a lot of times you got to put heat tape on them and you got to insulate them. But even then, sometimes the heat tape may just stop working and then they will freeze. And if it gets really bad, they will literally burst, and then you got to get in there and fix them stuff. And usually when it's probably about 20 below. I mean, you're never going to have to fix water pipes when it's 70 and sunny outside. It's always going to be 20 below. So you got to get your insulated coveralls, put on a few sweaters, put on a few pairs of wool socks and gloves and everything too, and get under there and get after it. And yeah, it's a tough job, but I mean, something you have to do, so you just accept it at the time. This past winter, I had a few pipes freeze because one of the heat tapes malfunctioned or it just stopped working, and you had to clean off the outlet and everything too, and then get it plugged back in. So yeah, there were a few days where it's 20 below outside where I was rolling around underneath the trailer and trying to get the heat tape up in there and everything too. And it's not. The weird thing is when it gets really extremely super cold, like 20 below Fahrenheit or 10 below, usually there's clear skies and then the sun is shining too. So as long as you're dressed properly for it, it's really not that bad. And it's good to hold a decent amount of body weight too. I mean, if you're some scrawny wimp that looks like you just rolled out of a cemetery, yeah, you're gonna get colder a lot quicker. 3-4 years ago when I was some scrawny wimp that rolled out of a sarcophagus, I had to walk around with 3 sweaters on everywhere because it was just cold all the time, even with other people who were at a decent body temperature. And certainly going outside, yeah, you definitely needed several layers. But yeah, it's really nothing to whine about. One of the other thing too is sometimes the sewer, if your pipes come disconnected anywhere, which when you go through hot and cold cycles, things move around. So your pipes there might be a connector here that breaks or something that gets dislodged or disjointed. So what happens? See, the reason if sewer pipes get clogged in summertime, so much water will build up behind them that the pressure is just so enormous that it'll unclog it based on that. I mean, if you got 30 feet of sewer pipe and you got water built up there, that's a tremendous amount of pressure, so it's going to unclog anything. But if your pipes become disjointed, the water is going to leave where it got disjointed, so there won't be that pressure behind the clogs to push everything through the sewer pipes. So then what you have is, during winter time, any water that does build up, it freezes. So then when the water accumulates behind it, it just continues to freeze, and it's just a cumulative effect. So you might have 30 feet of frozen sewer pipe in the middle of winter if your pipes aren't all fully connected and running as they should. So that's one of the disadvantages you have with a trailer home that you won't have with a regular home. Because a regular home, it just goes into the sewer pipe and it's 8 feet underground or 10 feet underground or 12 feet, whatever. So it's below the frost line. So you got nothing to worry about. But with your sewer pipes in a trailer, yeah, you can insulate it and run heat tape along all the sewer pipes, which yeah, it's gonna cost more money to run a heat tape all year, but it might be one. And what I've noticed too is if you wait for the sewer to get frozen pipes 10 feet in, and then you try to hook up heat tape to it, it doesn't really generate enough energy to fully thaw it out. So yeah, I mean it's not usually a big deal until it gets to 20 below for 2 weeks straight. Then it's kind of a hassle, because this past winter was pretty brutal, and I noticed that there's about 3 or 4 other trailers in the neighborhood that I noticed were abandoned, so I'm guessing they probably had frozen pipes here and there, so that's probably why they got abandoned. But yeah, I mean, just anticipate, pipes are going to freeze. Yeah, they may not freeze for 5-10 years, but they will eventually. So you got to fix them, which you don't typically have to do in a regular home. And then on top of that too, you always have to maybe not worry about it, but be aware of it, because when I lived in a stick-built house for 25 years or 20 years, whatever, never had to worry about frozen pipes. But then when you get in a trailer home, it's like, all right, if it's 20 below and you wake up in the morning, is the sink going to turn on, or is the bathtub or the shower going to turn on? So there's always that to consider too. And as far as heating goes, when you don't have the 8-foot deep concrete base, a lot of heat can get lost through the walls and through the floor and the ceilings too. So a trailer home is just very inefficient as far as trying to heat it up, because the walls are only 3.5 inches thick, whereas a regular house they're probably 6 inches thick. And then the floor's got the joists that are 6 inches thick, so the insulation that they put out of the trailer factory, that breaks down over time, so it does help a lot to add more insulation. Because I mean, through the it's double wide out here, so I put in all the between the joists you got the 13 inches or whatever. So I got all those insulation bats and filled up all the joists in between each side of the trailer home here. So hopefully it adds some insulated properties to it, but it does seem like that it's still a bit more expensive to heat than a regular house with a foundation and I think it's just because, you're just on a floating box, you're levitating in the environment, so every surface area that the trailer is exposed to cold air. Whereas a regular house, the bottom of the house is just exposed to the 10 feet underground, which is not very cold, and halfway up the frame, halfway up the foundation, it's just not very cold soil either. So you do have the earth as a natural insulator for half the house, and then the house that is above ground, the frame is 6 inches thick, and it has a lot better insulation characteristics and properties than a trailer home. And then the roof is probably a little bit thicker on a regular house too. So yeah, I mean the insulation, heating, cooling costs are a lot higher in a trailer based on the square footage that you're getting out of it. And the other thing too is trailers are definitely tornado magnets. I mean, anytime a tornado happens, it usually happens in a trailer park or an unofficial trailer park too. Now, yeah, that doesn't mean that houses aren't going to get damaged by tornadoes too, but they're definitely, there's more potential for damage in a trailer park. And then when there is high winds or anything like that, you have to find some designated storm shelter. That's why if you ever go to a trailer park, they got some big storm shelter in the middle of the park where you got to go there if there's a tornado coming or if there's high winds or whatever the case may be. Whereas out here there's a shed with a basement and everything, so you can just hop in there and call it good. Yeah, if it rains a lot, it'll probably fill up with water and everything too, but not a big deal. And the other thing too, when you do have to fix things around, see, a regular house, it is kind of a hassle because if you got to fix a sewer pipe, everything is underground. Whereas here, you can get after everything, but there still is a lot of things underground at a trailer because you got the septic mound and all that too. Or you might have city, they might have a centralized city or sewer and pressurized pipes and all that. So yeah, I mean, when you got to fix stuff in a trailer and you got to roll around underneath the trailer, you're basically guaranteed to get extremely dirty, and a lot of people don't really like that, understandably so. So, I mean, doing maintenance and fixing it is, and then the other thing too is sometimes over winter, the trailer's on a floating slab more or less, so it's gonna, just think of a boat on an ocean, except obviously it doesn't move that fluidly, but if you get a lot of moisture in the ground, if it freezes, if it thaws, it freezes, gets 20 below again, and does all this other stuff, you might have windows that crack or doors that decide not to open. Whereas, yeah, in a regular house, you might have those issues too because, things are expanding and contracting there as well. But in a trailer home, you're literally sitting on a frame that's moving up and down and left and right and up all around. So it's more susceptible to problems than a stick-built house. So I mean, that goes back to in winter, or when you got winter in a cold climate, probably a dumb idea to have a trailer. But in a warm climate, like Georgia or Alabama, then it's probably not such a bad idea, The other thing too is you can't add, as far as where you put weight in the trailer too. So you got the two I-beams that go down the middle, then you got about 24 inches on each side. So if you put a whole bunch of weight on the edge of the trailer, you kind of have to wonder what type of effect it'll have, like if it can support that much weight. It may not sound like a big deal, but if you're putting a water softener right on the edge of your trailer, and then you add a whole bunch of salt to it, so the next thing you know, the thing is 600 pounds. It could have some adverse effects on that too. It may not be able to support that weight on the edges, so you always had to consider that. And then too, if you want to put solar panels or add an additional layer to your roof to provide more insulation, you're not allowed to do that because it's only allowed to support the weight that's from the manufacturer. So I mean, literally, if I wanted to put solar panels on the roof here, I would not be able to do so. So that's definitely a huge disadvantage to the trailer home, the trailer home movement, and maybe the mini home movement and all that stuff too. It's like them whole mini homes. I really don't. It's like, yeah, mini home, it's cheaper, it's efficient living and all that stuff too. But I mean, if you got a lot of solar panels and wind towers and you're producing your own energy and you don't really need to live that efficiently. I mean, yeah, it is nice to have just a smaller space to not have a whole bunch of clutter and junk around you. But I mean, if you live in a big space, you're semi-organized, you don't have a whole bunch of junk. You know, if you can create all your own energy and stuff too, it's it seems like it's pretty handy. But the whole mini home movement, it just seems that it's some weird tactic to make us all accept living in substandard communities, or just to try to make people accept a lower standard of living, basically based on overpopulation and all this other goofy stuff, or lack of resources and whatnot. But I mean, if you think about all the energy that the sun provides, as long as we can harness it relatively efficiently, and all the wind and everything and the water and the rains in the heavens above, there's really no reason that eventually we'll be able to get energy at a pretty reasonable cost for everybody. You know, I'm not talking about dollar for dollar or whatever, just very efficient means of harnessing energy. But maybe that won't ever happen. Maybe that's very wishful thinking. I mean, this world does work kind of weird. We'll probably get into that later. The other thing too about trailer homes is, in cold weather, every once in a while you'll just hear these random loud bangs when, you know, the frame is moving, you know, expanding and contracting, and it'll make loud noises, and you know, sometimes I feel like the house is about to crack in two. And in a normal stick-built house, that really doesn't happen that often. So I mean, just weird noises here and there are one thing that you'll encounter that you wouldn't really expect or anticipate. So that being said, we're coming up to another break, ladies and gentlemen. So I mean, just to provide a quick compendium, some of the cons: pipes freeze, you gotta have heat tape, insulation. Sometimes the sewers will freeze in the middle of the winter time. You know, the walls are thin, the ceiling and the floors are thin, they're all exposed to the outside, so the insulating characteristics of a trailer home are a lot worse than a regular house. The foundation is on a floating, you know, they put it on cinder blocks, so it's just floating around. You know, it can make doors hard to open and close, windows may crack and all that bad stuff. In inclement weather, tornadoes, hurricanes, all that, you gotta find shelter, because you can't just hang out in a trailer if a tornado is coming. And then you gotta crawl around underneath it to fix it. You know, if what happens is, over time your trailer will settle, so then there's even less clearance to work underneath. The first thing I did when I bought this place is I jacked it up a little bit and then leveled it off. So, you know, it allows you a little bit more room to work underneath, and then it has a level trailer. Otherwise, you know, I'd be standing like this if it was still unlevel like it was when I first bought the place. You gotta consider your weight distribution where you're putting. You know, if you want to put some giant heavy TV on the edge of the trailer, you know, it's probably not a big deal, but just one of them things where, yeah, when you got a regular house with the foundation on the edges, you know, you can put stuff anywhere you want in the house. But with a trailer home, you got to think about things like that a little bit more. And then too, you know, the house, every once in a while it'll make some really loud, weird noises in the middle of winter time when the temperature shoots way down and then goes back up again. So, I mean, the 20 plus years I lived in a regular house, I didn't really notice those, but you know, living in a trailer for a few years, yeah, sometimes it seems like the place is falling apart based on just these weird loud bangs that you hear. I mean, no, they're not spirits or ghosts or anything. It's just, that's just what happens when material expands and contracts under stressful conditions like cooling off and warming up again. So with that being said, we're going to have a show in the near future called Good Times Balls Deep. The host he's busy procuring sponsorships. It sounds like he's locked one down. So yeah, all he's got to do is go there for 40 hours a week and then they'll sponsor his show. It's a pretty good deal, really. Then he can, you know, he's still got ample time to run Good Times Balls Deep and bring it at a high level and all that. So yeah, in the near future we'll have that. Maybe we'll have some other shows too, but we'll see. I mean, this show, it seems to be humming along just fine, so yeah, we're gonna have low and high points, but you know, that's just a natural life cycle of a talk show, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll be back in 3 minutes, it looks like. Welcome back to Text Messages, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're glad to have you here. It's April 28th, 2018. We're on episode 27. We're ultimately comparing trailer homes to stick-built homes. Just see which one is great again, which one is better based on where you live, how you're living, why you're living, who you're living with, and what you're living in, which is ultimately what we're trying to determine which one is superior to the other. So the first segment, we hit the pros of trailer homes. You got more social prestige. People think you're a lot cooler. People want to hang out with you more. They want to go to your trailer more often. Trailer is more fun to say than a house. It's cheaper upfront costs. The property taxes are cheaper. You don't have to worry about your basement flooding. And people aren't going to ask you to buy stuff because they know that you probably don't spend money on a lot of stuff if you live in a trailer home. And there are a few other inherited advantages too. You don't have solicitors, people that stop by and ask you to buy stuff. That I suppose, I kind of just said that, but I wasn't very specific. You don't need to worry about putting up a sign that says no solicitors, because automatically, just by living in a trailer, you pretty much, that's basically a sign right there. No solicitors. So all those pros make it sound all grand and everything. But if you live in a cold climate like Minnesota or basically anywhere in North USA, you got to worry about pipes freezing. The walls are thin, the ceilings, the floors are all exposed, the outside air. So it's a lot more money to insulate it, or it costs a lot more to heat and cool it. The foundation is a floating one, so your doors may not open and close properly, and the tornadoes like to hit trailer parks. So then you got to find a nice hideout spot and everything too. And if you got to fix stuff underneath, you got to crawl around it, and you got to worry about where you distribute the weight and everything. And it tends to make a lot of noise in cold weather too. So as far as cons go, I guess there isn't too many. It is nice to have a basement though. If you want to have a workout or a squat rack or whatever, and you want to, because in here, I had to reinforce the floor, put in a bunch of 2x6s so that I could put hundreds of pounds on a squat rack and not worry about falling through the hole or stepping through the floor if I got 300 pounds on my back, whatever the case may be. So a concrete basement and a stick-built house is definitely a big advantage there. And you can cause a lot more ruckus, and like if you want to get all your friends together and listen to a bunch of loud music and then run into each other and throw each other around and break bottles, you definitely need a concrete basement with concrete walls to do that. In a trailer home, you wouldn't. You could, if you have a garage, you could probably do it out there too. So it is kind of nice to do it in your basement though, especially if it's cold outside. Then you don't have to worry about heating your garage and all that. So that's another big advantage to a stick-built house. And occasionally the house will become unlevel, so then you got to get underneath there with the bottle jacks and jack it up and try to get level again too. And the ceilings are lower. I don't know if that's an advantage or disadvantage. Suppose maybe it's a less surface area to heat or cool and all that good fun stuff. And then the other thing too that I noticed here is sometimes you'll hear animal noises through the vents. I don't know if an animal is tearing apart the insulation or what it's doing underneath there, but it is kind of weird when at 2 in the morning you hear some weird animals through your vents. You're thinking like, oh, maybe they can get into the trailer or whatever. So there are more access points for mice and rats to get into, because my parents, they've been living in their house for 40 years, and I think one mice has gotten into the house, and who knows, maybe it happened when somebody opened up the door too, but when I first moved into this trailer, there was 2 mice in it right away. And then as I was tearing stuff apart and everything, there's one of the walls I found a bigger rat in it. So it was a pretty big rat. It was dead obviously, but where he could have accessed and got in is beyond me really. It's because I didn't think there was any holes that big, but this place out here, it's been abandoned and people have come and gone and renters, this, that, and the other thing. So it's been through the ringer. But I did a bunch of remodeling and junk and hopefully got it all up to a living condition. But so I don't know if you can attribute this to trailers or maybe just something else. But seems that every time I leave for a few days and I come back, I just get hit with a wall of stench. So I mean, as far as maybe I put some subpar quality equipment in for the kitchen cabinets or the flooring, or maybe there's some weird smell coming in through the vents, but yeah, I mean, it just seems that the trailers are built with lesser quality than our stick built house, because the floors are it's got that buffalo board where they just glue together a bunch of wood particles, whereas a lot of houses nowadays are probably built with the same cheap stuff too. So I guess that's really a wash as far as which one is greater again than the other. But I mean, it's yeah, I mean, with a regular house, you got better grounding and everything too, because you're not just floating through the atmosphere on two metal frames with the wood, or two metal foundational supports with the wood frame and everything. So yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but to ultimately conclude and wrap up, if you live in a warm climate, then yeah, man, a trailer is probably gonna be great again and be the superior way to go. Unless you got a whole bunch of money and you like working and having a lot of money and spending a lot of money, then yeah, it's probably a better idea just to go with a regular house. See, I don't even know why they call trailer homes or mobile homes, because I mean, yeah, saying trailer is really fun and everything, but I mean, once you back it in and lay down the cinder blocks and anchor it down and everything too, the thing ain't going anywhere. Well, I mean, if a tornado comes, yeah, it's going somewhere, but I mean, it's not, especially double wides. I mean, this place, it's not going to go anywhere else, so there's no point in calling it a mobile home, because it's, once you lay it down on the cinder blocks, it's going to stay there until a bulldozer comes or an excavator and comes and wrecks it and destroys it and puts it in a dumpster, and then a stick-built house is probably supplanted in its place. So yeah, I mean, RVs and stuff, RVs are totally different. You can drive them around anywhere, hook up to water and sewer in those random parks, and just have a good time and laugh and smile. I mean, a trailer home, it's just, it was probably a good idea for temporary living, for people that want to go camp out or go gold mining in the 1849s, and they need, or people that want to go work in Williston, North Dakota, they can just back up a bunch of trailer homes and then they can live there. But it seems like they could probably do the same thing in RVs. So yeah, I really don't really have any good idea of why. You're going to live somewhere for 20, 30 plus years, then yeah, just get the stick-built house and build it. Build it to last too. That's probably the biggest problem. I mean, most stick-built houses, yeah, they're built to last 150, maybe 200 years tops. But if you build one of those like medieval castles in Europe that's been around for thousands upon thousands of years, I mean, that's probably the way to go. Just try to implement old tech into new tech and build it so it's comfortable, and then it's going to last thousands and thousands of years. I mean, yeah, I know you're not going to live for thousands of years, but it's still nice to leave that legacy or whatever the case is, because I mean, all these houses out here, probably another 100 years or 150 years, they'll probably all be wiped out and gone and back into the atmosphere, back into the soil, and eradicated off the face of planet Earth. So it is cool to build something that's long lasting, that's going to be around for a very long time. So yeah, in conclusion, you're living down south, you don't like spending money, yeah, trailer home is probably the way to go. But then you might have to worry about like snakes crawling into your place and all that, and weird poisonous rats and mice and everything. So yeah, it probably is a better idea just to get the stick-built house. In cold climate, it's absolutely a good idea to get the stick-built house. Yeah, I wouldn't even consider a trailer home. Yeah, it costs more money and everything, but it does suck though when you have to get a mortgage and you know that you're supporting the Federal Reserve and fractional bank and all this other stuff that essentially is just wrecking society. So for me, it was a pretty easy choice just to get the trailer home that I could buy with cash and no mortgage or no chicanery or nothing. But you just had to consider your options, and if essentially what I'm saying here, oranges to oranges, house to trailer. Pick a house, but when you got to start figuring out all these other things, like, are you supporting dirty money if you're buying a house, and if you got to lock yourself down with a mortgage and a debt and then do shady, like, maybe you got to become a webcam whore to pay off your mortgage, or if you're a male, you have to start shipping drugs from Colombia. Then I suppose if that's the alternative, then yeah, it's probably a better idea just to get the trailer home and not have to spend a bunch of money on that too. So, every circumstance is different, so you can't judge a book by its cover or a man by the kind of suit he's wearing too. So, but I'm just trying to provide you with a lucid perspective of, because I've lived in both trailers, houses, apartments, terraforming Mars and everything. So I got a pretty good bastion of knowledge as far as which one is greater than the other. And I can pretty much tell you one hand, in winter, Minnesota, long-term financially, a house is better. Long-term comfort-wise, a house is better. Short-term comfort-wise, a house is better. The only thing that a trailer really beats a house in is short-term financially. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, it doesn't really provide many benefits relative to a regular house too. And then if you want to live in like a trailer park, it's really expensive and you don't get anything out of it. You got to pay $300-400 a month just for the land. Out here, I actually live a lot cheaper out here than people in a trailer park would, because the only monthly expense that I have that goes towards nothing essentially is property tax, and that's $900 a year. So $75 a month. So yeah, I'm spending about $200-300 less a month than somebody living in a trailer park. And essentially I'm getting an acre of land that I can do whatever I want, outdoor gardening and hang out with chickens and feral cats and raccoons and possums and squirrels and chipmunks. So, and if you get a regular house too, the resale value is going to be a lot higher. Yeah, you're going to pay more interest and all that junk, but if you got $200,000 in cash, then our society is kind of set up to where mortgages are so cheap that you're almost not better off buying a house with cash than trying to invest it in something decent. But what I've found is all investments are risky and this, that, and the other thing. But it's totally up to you. If you got some sweet business idea that maybe you want to spend $30,000 on getting a really nice camera and a speaker and set up your own talk show, then yeah, it's probably maybe a better idea to get that than to put $30,000 into some weird investment that you're not sure if it's going to tank or maybe it'll triple in a couple months. Not really sure, but yeah, investment talk, that maybe we can talk about that some other show. I don't really know much about investing, so that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've come to the conclusion. Yeah, it really seems like we're about at that time. Clock has sort of escaped me a little bit, getting into all this trailer house talk and everything. So we're gonna have good times, balls deep in the near future, hopefully. And yeah, sounds like he's gonna start getting together or working with that sponsor very soon. And you've got warm weather coming up, so we're pretty excited about that. Let's try to get outside, enjoy the weekend. Cedar Lake Speedway opens today, Saturday. Otherwise, yeah, you're listening to Text Messages, episode 27. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Text. We'll be back tomorrow. Cover some new health discoveries or things of that nature, and hopefully it'll make you great again and healthy again. Thanks for watching once again.